And if you're running a group, that's a very different container than if you're running an individual session. There's a link there. There's a connection between those two types of containers. But I want you to think very intentionally about like, what kind of container am I creating? What's the experience I want to build in this container? As we get into this conversation today, how often have you put some thought into like, what kind of container would you like to create?
One of the best experiential explanations of this that I've gotten, I don't remember which coach did this, but I think it was one of the in-person events that I went to, is that and I started doing this, was right before the call, I would actually visualize the container that I would create for the client.
Hey, it's Daniel, and you are about to watch a clip from our free podcast, The Coach's Journey, where we help you navigate the surprisingly difficult path of building a coaching business by people who are actually doing it. And we go live, raw, and unedited every week in our free Facebook community.
All right, Coaches Nation, super excited to be here with the one and only Daniel Fernandes and in the Coaches Journey podcast. We are super excited to talk to you about your coaching skill set, but more specifically around the kind of coaching container that you're going to build. But ultimately, you might be thinking about growing your business or building your business or getting more clients. But if your coaching doesn't work, specifically if your coaching container doesn't work, the business doesn't work, because that is your product, that's your service. And not only does the business not work in getting clients, but even if it works a little bit to get some clients, you might not be able to get referrals and renewals, and you might not be able to grow and scale at the group level if the coaching container doesn't work. And usually for most coaches, it starts with one-on-one coaching, and they go to group, or it might start from group, they go to one-on-one. Either way, the coaching container becomes one of the most essential pieces for you to build a successful and sustainable coaching business. And we'll go deeper into this. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, definitely do. If you're watching it on the outside, if you're in the Facebook group, you're watching this live, definitely interact with us, engage with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts as we're going through this. Daniel, let's get started with this. What are your thoughts about what is the beginning of, what is the intention behind creating a powerful coaching container? And then we'll go into the specifics of how the container need to be.
I love the word container, and I think the word container actually is like, if you're listening to this and you're like, what do you mean coaching container? Then like you definitely need to listen today. Because the container is actually a protected space. That's really what we're talking about. It's a space where something very specific happens. I call the coaching container a sacred container because it's like a very personal, connective, deep space that allows for so many different things to happen that do not happen very often for people outside of these coaching containers. It's one of the reasons why coaching is so powerful, because we have the ability to create this powerful container. And once you have that container, now how you engage with that container, how you define that container, how you set up the engagement rules of this container, the expectations of this container actually can totally transform the experience. I mean, everything you do has a container. Sometimes it's very porous and sometimes it's very specifically defined. But like if you go to a dentist, the dentist has a container. Their dental office, they have a container. And then they take you from the big container to the little container where you're in the chair. And that chair is a little container for you too. There's a whole experience around containers. If you go to a church, you're in this container. There's this space. Sometimes that space is physical, but it can also be virtual and or relational. And if you're running a group, that's a very different container than if you're running an individual session. There's a link there. There's a connection between those two types of containers. But I want you to think very intentionally about like, what kind of container am I creating? What's the experience I want to build in this container? As we get into this conversation today, how often have you put some thought into like, what kind of container would you like to create? What are you doing, especially at the beginning of the experience, to demonstrate the container, to explicitly agree to what we're going to do in this container? That's like a really important part of creating a container. And I think uh, making your containers more and more powerful, we'll talk about this, but it happens during the container, but it also happens before the container, how you frame up that container. There's lots of pieces. And, for the purposes of our conversation today, the container is the coaching conversation. It could be a discovery session. It could be a session within your program. It could even be a qualification / connection call. Even individual conversations you have with people are containers. So you meet somebody on the street, you're building a little container with them. You're having an interaction. Interactions. The container is a place where interactions occur, and that's what I want you to think about in your coaching business. What defines that container? Faisal, how do you think about your container? in
Oh, I
defining it.
love that. That one you did a good job of explaining that it could be a physical container, it could be virtual, that space for interaction that you have. One of the best experiential explanations of this that I've gotten. I don't remember which coach did this, but I think it was one of the in-person events that I went to. Is that and I started doing this was right before the call, I would actually visualize the container that I would create for the client. So you actually visually envelop the client in your presence. And all that matters is the client, not your thoughts, not other people in your environment, not other problems and challenges, but all that matters is that client within that container. The client doesn't know that. The client is just getting on a conversation. All the client is going to receive is the support that they need to go to the next step in their journey, the next level of challenge, the next level of growth, whatever that might be. But I'm usually visualizing creating literally a physical container around them, whether it is physical or not, or an energetic container around them more accurately rather than physical. Whether it's in a physical space and an event, or it's in the virtual. To me, that makes it more real for my mind. And it is real like that. It feels like that when you have a powerful coaching container.
It's more real. There's this magic that we have in our minds. Like we can make our thoughts reality through the way that we set intentions and the way we act, right? It's like miraculous if you think about it. Like all the societal technology that we have and developments, they all started in like somebody's mind somewhere, a bunch of minds. So like we can take anything from our consciousness and create something out of it, like in the real like interactive physical world. So it's not that big a stretch to say, I had this idea and I wrote down a story. Well, I had this intention and I created a container for the people that I'm interacting with, and I think it's a really good practice, Faisal, to set intentions like that and set this container energy before you go in. And we've all had the experience where we failed to do that container because we were in a rush and we showed up a little bit too late for the session. We didn't get our preparation done and we didn't get our state set and our intention set and our container built ahead of time. And that starts the session off to a little bit worse of a start. It could be a rocky start. It could be that client just subtly, subconsciously perceives that you're not totally there yet. Like you need to warm up, and then that slows down the session and takes that depth potential away in many cases. And then if you're taking the time to warm up after the session starts, you've already missed the opportunity to build that container. And I would say like
Yeah.
we've all done that. It's not you have to be perfect, but like I think it's a good practice, and it has to be something that you get better and better at as a coach. The higher levels of coaching, that is automatic.
Yeah.
The best coaches in the world do not skip that step
Yeah,
ever,
and
right?
again, once in a while, life will happen. We're talking about what is the consistent practice here. So, for example, I visually picture that, but I also, and I've developed these over the years. It's not like it happened day one, but they were really good practices that have helped me. For example, I have three words for my all my coaching sessions is serve, energy, challenge, and they each mean something to me when it comes to my coaching session, and it helps me show up with intention. I get rid of everything around me that is a distraction. I have my notes. I have my client. Usually, I have video calls for this. In rare moments, it's in-person session one-on-one, and a couple of times a year, I'm doing events with people in person too. But all of them require a certain amount of intention. I'd say in person requires a deeper intention because all
Oh
of
yeah,
you is in a sense there, and it requires more of your energy. Virtual events requires just as much as you, whether I'm doing a workshop this week and it's a coaching session on Thursday. I need to intentionally be there, not just show up with a plan, but also have the intention to build that container for people, regardless of where it goes in terms of a sale or whatever. It doesn't matter. To me, it's like, can I serve these people in this container? So
yeah,
that's the starting point of it. So you're energetically, mentally, physically getting ready. Once in a while, life will happen. Like I've had emergencies happen like right
of
before
course.
a session. I've had arguments happen before a session. I jumped onto a call. It was interesting. It was with one of my clients years ago. he knew me quite a bit for it. I think we'd been working together a year and a half, and he knew my energy well. And I learned something very profound there. I actually got into a really big argument with my wife, and it's the wrong, like I couldn't
Tell
avoid
me
it.
about this. Yeah, go ahead.
I couldn't avoid it. I still had about 5 minutes to get ready. I usually give myself at least 15 minutes, but I had 5 minutes left, and I'm just like doing my best to kind of get all the energy out of my body, and it wasn't working. But I still wanted to show up for the client. I show up and I ask him how he's doing and everything. About 5 minutes or so goes by. The client looks at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" You seem a little bit
Or
off.
did you think they might not notice?
I actually think that they might not know, but he picked it up on it very,
Yeah.
very quickly. And then I was like, shit, this is not gonna go. And I actually just shared. I'm like, listen, I got into a huge argument with my wife, and did my best to prepare here, and I don't want that to take away from our session. But that's probably what you're reading into it. He looked at me, joked around, he's like, maybe I can coach you there. I'm like, maybe, but let's do that later. But I'm here to support you, and thank you for noticing that. But actually, after that, it went much better.
Well,
The
you
fact
acknowledged
that,
it too, and now you don't have to worry about like him, like the tension between what his perceptions are, what you're feeling, right?
yeah, and that was an exception. That's not the rule. Like I do my best to not have those kind of things, but life will happen. But if I were to look at out of 1,000 sessions, maybe one or two have been like that. Not every session, but th those are an exception. But if you're showing up to every session in a hurry and your mind is all over the place, your body's all over the place, you're feeling the client picks up on it. Now, not every client like him will say that. Not every
It
client will
won't,
point
yeah.
it out. They
They'll
will
just feel it.
just they'll just feel it, be like, yeah, this person is not fully there.
Yeah. I have a couple of thoughts on this. I had a client who's been with me for many years, and so it was happened, I think, late last year or early this year. I'm usually like turning the Zoom on at the moment of the start of session, but for some reason this time I had started it, and not for some reason. I know why. I had a cascade of events in my life that like back to back stuff that just kind of cascaded. I couldn't get to the call in time. I started it like a minute late, like it was 12:01 or something like that. And normally she gets in there at 12:01, 12 o'clock, sometimes later, and but she said like Daniel, I got here before you for the first time ever. It's been like we've been coaching weekly for like 4 or 5 years. And she's like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Well, tell you what happened. Here's what happened." So, it was funny, but I would encourage everybody listening to like ask yourself, how much of a risk is it in your coaching sessions that you show up late? And how much time are you dedicating to your sessions before the clock starts? If the time is less than a couple minutes, you may want to expand yourself here. Like Faisal said, 15 minutes. I think that's a great practice. Faisal, you probably have movement in there. You probably have breath work. You probably have like setting up your environment. You probably have looking at your clients, looking at your notes, thinking through, setting your container and your intentions. Probably all this stuff is part of your practice here. But like, what can you incorporate into your practice? Give yourself a little extra time, a little buffer, so you can go in not feeling rushed at all. I've had times in my life where I felt rushed on every single coaching session. I won't say it never happens, but I think I'm much better than I used to be. But I still got improvements to make here. I think I could spend even more. I take my own advice here and spend like go from 10 minutes to a little more, maybe 15 minutes or something like that, right? And so like that's one area of challenge that I would say for, everybody listening, challenge yourself. Add a little extra time. That means you have to block it off in your calendar, right? And you have to like know what to do at that time. It doesn't mean, oh, I have 15 minutes. I can wait till this session starts. It means now's the time. Um, and then I have one more thought on your own energy, because there's things in our energy that we don't notice. When I get better sleep, as I have been the last couple weeks, I've gotten really good sleep. And I've noticed when practicing my singing that my voice is sounding really good. I've gotten great sleep, I've gotten great exercise, I've done my breath training, and my breath exercises, and I sound really good singing. I'm sure that my voice hits differently during coaching calls as a result of maybe the week before or the week before that, where I wasn't sleeping very well. And part of that is having kids that are really young, and part of that is also like my own practices. How early am I getting to go to sleep? And so like I noticed the difference in my singing. You can be sure to I can be sure that my clients have noticed the difference in my vocal quality. You might have noticed it now compared to a couple weeks ago. So ultimately, like the things that you're doing during the day before, during the weeks preceding, all add up. So part of you as a coach raising your own performance level as a coach will be doing all the things you know that fill you up and doing all the things you know that ramp your energy up, that give you that presence, that give you um, that ability to connect at an emotional, energetic level that you might not have, right? Because everybody knows when you have more sleep, you feel calmer, you feel more collected, you're able to connect more, you're able to notice things more. Your brain is not struggling to keep up. You might think that you're performing well, but you're not if you're tired all the time. So like that's been something I've noticed too, especially this last couple of weeks. I've really raised the game on my sleep and my health, and I'm noticing it in different ways. I'm sure my clients are noticing it too.
Yeah. Thank you for continuing that, Daniel. My connection's been all over the place.
That's okay.
Uh, Starlink is not cooperating with me today. Uh, it's been a little bit off. So coming, I know the you went into sharing like your practices around how you set yourself up to show up better in the session. So a couple of things that I've started doing more in the past 3 months. It's hard to do in certain environments, but I go outside, get fresh air, movement before a session, even if it's for 5 minutes. I'll
Yeah.
go. A lot of times I get 10, 15 minutes of walk, and like that clears a lot in my mind if I can. That's been a consistent practice. Just to set up for a session, I want to go into like what happens during the session. Like we set for intention, container, like visualize it and move your body, like get your body, thoughts, mind, all that ready. Of course, go through your notes and that stuff as you're taking them if it's necessary.
Talking about navigating the
Now,
session itself.
yeah, how do you navigate a session? Maybe we should start with like this will be very useful for people. Like you're on a, let's say you're on what do you call it? A discovery call.
Discovery call.
A discovery call, which is one of the first coaching calls you will do with a client. Do you do anything different? Do you, and for me, at least they're a little bit longer. Then we can talk about what our process is like, how we show up. If you don't have that much context versus if you have a long-term client you've been coaching for 2, 3 years.
Are you asking Faisal like what things types of things do I do at the beginning of a discovery call and during the discovery
Yeah,
call?
sure.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if you're familiar, if for those who are listening, if you're familiar with our CMC discovery call process, there's a few big areas. I'll just mention them real quick. If you want to learn more, you know, go join our Facebook group. Facebook group is free at cmc.coach. You can contact us. You can come to one of our workshops. Well, we have one on June 10th coming up. You can register for that at cmc.coach/workshop. I think when that link comes out. But one of the things we
And
talk
you
about.
actually get our whole process for free for running your discovery calls there as a
Yeah,
bonus.
just for attending. Yeah, just for registering and attending. You can get the whole process in detail, which actually you'd be surprised at how deep the rabbit hole goes on this stuff to really have a high level discovery session. There's like three big areas. One is like what are the goals? What are the desires? What is this person trying to achieve? What are they trying to build? What's the big big desire they have? And there may be multiple layers of that, and areas of that. And then number two is like the obstacles, the barriers, the problems, the issues, the struggles. And the third one is like their emotional life. What kind of emotions are they having on a regular basis? Do they understand what they're trying to create? And like what is that? What makes them happy? What makes them unhappy? Those kinds of things. Those are the kind of three big lenses that I would encourage everybody to cover in discovery sessions. Um, and whether your discovery session is a 2 hour one or a 90 minute or 60 minute, whatever it is, one of the things that you want to do at the beginning of the call is frame up the call. I like to
Before you
always,
go there, can I add a couple other ones from our
yeah,
framework? I think you missed
please.
it.
Yeah. I didn't
So
share all of it. I just shared the big lenses. So there's more to
there's
cover.
one other piece that's also big. There's goals, obstacles, and you mentioned emotions. So emotions will come throughout. Like it's important to like that's the underlying current. Like I like you should.
Faisal was talking about the emotions. His internet connection cut out. And like emotions will occur throughout the session. I'm not specifically saying that's the lens. I'm talking about the fact that the emotions is one of the areas of topics you should be going into. Those are the three key topical areas. There's other stuff in this framework. There, Faisal's back. finish what you're saying, Faisal, about the emotions.
Right. The part about happy, what makes them happy or emotions and stuff, I look at that more as perception. Like what is the
Hmm.
lens with which they look at their life, business, all that stuff, because that
This is
determines
our
the emotions
perception
come into the
section. Lenses are the perceptions
yeah.
they have. What are these lenses? That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
And then the last piece that's important, I would say, is the long term. Like their long-term goals, long-term vision, long purpose, those kind of things. We're exploring all those areas or as much as we can to understand like what are they trying to create and what's missing, what's working, what's not working. And we're looking for, at least I'm looking for blind spots, areas that they're not able to see. Even if they see that there's a problem, they're not able to see the depth of it, the effect of it on
Or
their
the
life and
impact.
what they could
Yeah.
do, and the impact of it. For me, they tend to be longer just because there's a lot of discovery involved, which is why we call it a discovery sessions. We go much wider before we go vertically deeper.
But I
And
share that as
so
kind of like the areas to talk about. Mostly, it's
yeah,
like this is gives you context for like what do we do in a discovery session so we can have this conversation about the container. I don't want to go to too much detail
right.
here, given the time.
Right, yeah. Let's not go into too much detail, but let's say you're exploring those areas. So we could give somebody the framework and they could have the whole thing, but that doesn't mean they will do it very well.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between somebody who has experimented more with it, who has a little bit more experience than others. One person who has a lot more experience, they can take the same framework and completely do an amazing session, but another person who doesn't have, they'll be able to make it very useful, but they will need to experiment with it a few times. It's like somebody who's an experienced cook versus a non-experienced cook. You can give them the same recipe, and one will turn it into something amazing, and they might even create other things on top. The other one will struggle to go through that, but they will just need to practice a couple other times.
Yeah, I love that. And the container that that chef is creating starts, into how they're designing their kitchen, perhaps, as well, and all the tools they're going to use and how they approach it. Um, but in our example, like we're talking about a chef working them by themselves potentially, but in this example of coaching, it's a little different because we have a separate, and I love that analogy, by the way, Faisal. The question we're asking is how do you create that interaction container for your discovery sessions, as well as for your normal sessions. But I think a discovery session is a particularly valuable create container for coaches to learn how to create for their clientele. And that's the question we're asking. So we sort of cover some of the topics you talk about during the session, but if you talk about those with a really poor container, it's not going to have the forward momentum. It's not going to have the definition around it to really set them up for some deep work as well as being willing to take that next step with you in your coaching to like be open to an offer. And part of the setting up the container is dual purpose. One is to create this really connective relational container where you can do some real good work together. We can do a lot of clarity work, and that's a lot of the coaching in the discovery session is clarity work and exploring the landscape to understand them in their lives. Um, but there's another purpose of it that is not necessarily in contradiction with that. That's to help them take steps forward through the decision-making process of whether you're going to coach together in their lives, what they're going to do. There's multiple decision pathways that the discovery session is opening up for them. Once they start to see clearly, they might make the decision to work with you. The container has to also be consistent with that and encouraging of that pathway. You don't want to create a container that makes it really hard for them to say yes to working with you. And part of that container
Right.
starts, of course, before the container, which is like in the other containers where you're meeting them and having conversations with them before they come to your discovery session. But part of that happens at the beginning of the discovery session where I like to call it the initial agreements that you set, the frame that you put on the discovery session. What do you call it? How do you talk about it? Checking in with them, making sure that they understand what we're about to do here today. All those pieces. Like, for example, I always like to ask them, hey, is it okay if we push you today and challenge you? Make sure that they understand that that's what there's going to be happening today. It's not just a regular conversation like you have with a friend on the street or an acquaintance. Like, this is going to be some deeper work. Are you okay with that? And they always say, yeah, that's great. Cool. Some of them are like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. They hadn't thought about it. But I want that agreement in there as an example because it's creating a more powerful container for them. It's setting their expectations. It's putting an intention in their mind and in my mind that that's what we're going to do, right? As an example, that's a part of creating that container, right? Sometimes I ask them at the beginning, like, "Hey, what made you most excited to join this discovery call today, or join this session today, and to be part of this process for your life?" And they'll tell me, and that's good information for me. But it's also reminding them of the importance of this session to them that sets the session as relevant and valuable for their life. That's just part of the creating the container. There's lots of other parts. I'm just sharing a couple. Faisal, any other thoughts for the beginning of the session? Maybe share a couple of container creation ideas.
Yes, I mean, we generally shared the framework around it and what to be aware of, but one of the things that I do is, especially if you're doing a discovery call, it's one of the first coaching calls you're doing with somebody. I think you shared a version of it as to, yeah, this is a coaching container. It's not a friend conversation with a friend. So I actually, now, one of the things that has been helpful for me is to give, a lot of people are nervous to get on calls like this because it can get
Yeah, they
very
don't know.
personal. It can go very deep. They know that it's long. They've already, at least in my case, written, like filled out a long form about their challenges, their goals, their struggles, all kinds of stuff. So they've already shared a bunch of personal stuff. They know that it's going to get very personal. So I give them the intention for the call. I let them know, hey, I'm gonna spend a couple of minutes sharing a little bit about me. It's not about me, but I want you to know what the intention I come here for and why I'm here with you, how I can support you. And then we go, I actually describe the whole framework. I tell them like, we'll go into your goals and challenges, then we'll go into perception, we'll go towards long term, your long term goals, vision, those kind of things. And really the purpose of it is to figure out where you might be either struggling to see or you might not see. You might have some blind spots or areas of opportunities that you're not seeing. We'll still deal with the challenges that you're bringing up, you've shared in the questionnaire, but this just gives us a framework or a structure to navigate it. Otherwise, we'll be here for like the next 10 hours.
Yeah,
It goes by really
yeah,
fast.
yeah,
And aside from that, I let them know that hey, ultimately this is for me to support you. So this is about you. This is not about me. And so if we go off the structure, I'm perfectly okay with that. And a lot of times it's unpredictable where we can go, even though I might have a structure. And then I tell them like, hey, the more open you are, of course, the deeper we can go. And sometimes it can get uncomfortable. Sometimes I might challenge you. Are you okay with that? So those kind of like those agreements,
yeah,
I set
yeah,
it up front so they
exactly.
understand what the container is about rather than, and a lot of times even if a client, potential client is nervous, they're like, well, thank you for having a structure. So I understand where we're going. That
Yeah, I love
alleviates
to
some of the
tell them
anxiety.
similar things that you're talking about. There's a couple other ones that I will add just for people listening to have more ideas on like part of setting this container intentionally. Like I sometimes say, actually, I always say, hey, sometimes these conversations go wherever they go, and every single time it's exactly where it needs to go. So I'm open to go wherever, and sometimes these subjects may come up. You might think they're taboo, they're not. People, and I give some examples of things that people have brought up in sessions, like maybe their child came out to them, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe somebody committed suicide, and I kind of normalize the area of taboos. If you want to talk about some of these things, I can go there, but and I also tell them, like, don't hesitate if you think it's relevant to bring it up. There's nowhere that you're gonna go that I won't be able to go with you, but you can always say, like, I don't really want to go there right now. That's okay too, and we will respect that as an example of something that I share with them in one way, one form or another. And I also give them an idea of what's the process of the session. I say like we're gonna do some upfront discussion of what we're gonna do today. Then we're gonna go through some process that I have to take you through, and it'll go wherever it needs to go, like I said. And then there's like we're gonna do some wrap up, and I always say like at the end we're gonna have 10, 15 minutes at least of wrap up. We're gonna cover your insights. So this is also setting the expectations for that container. And I kind of walk through what the wrap up is gonna be. We don't have a ton of time to like go in detail of all these different things that you can do in your discovery sessions, but I set that up so that they know what to expect and they don't feel as weird, awkward, or nervous about the experience. And I just make it sound really, really normal because it's totally normal. I do this over and over again with people. And it's never abnormal for me. So it just helps them feel like this is normal, this is actually valuable. And people have found that, valuable. And I mention
Yeah.
other people have gone through this and they often say whatever positive things about it. And by that point they may have had seen my testimonials. So it kind of all adds up to the container.
Yeah, for sure. I love all that. One other point, which might seem like a business thing for a lot of coaches, but it's actually also important. It depends on some situation, but in most cases, it's important to let them. Let them know that, hey, if let's say we get to the end of the conversation, 2 hours, 90 minutes, 60 minutes,
Hmm.
whatever. If you feel like you need more support like this, would you be open to having a conversation about that? Just framing that so they understand that there's a continuation for that. And if there is an offer, they don't get surprised by it. There's
Yeah.
a lot, actually, a lot more to cover here. Maybe we'll do a part two of this
Yeah, I think it's a good
next
idea.
week.
Yeah.
Or you do the part two because I won't be here next week. You continue the part two of this.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, we have another topic planned, but when we figure out what we're gonna do, that's good.
For sure, for sure. But at least we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We weren't able to go because I want to talk about like what do you do with regular clients? How do you at least you understand the intentions and how you show up? How do you frame some of these sessions? But it starts with these. If you can do these, that's like half the battle. And then the rest is how you navigate these sessions, what kind of questions and all kinds of things like that. But we'd love to
Yeah.
hear from you. Please share your thoughts below and we'll continue this conversation next time.
And if you loved our podcast today or you got some value out of it, please reply wherever you're seeing this or forward this to other coaches that you know. Get them in touch with us. We'd love to support them too. And go out and practice some of the things we told you. Set that energy with your container ahead of time. The practices that you have for weeks ahead of time also is part of that. When your discovery session, set that container with intention and show up early so that you can get yourself in the right state. And then be intentional about how you navigate these sessions, especially those discovery sessions. Set their expectations, have them feel like this is like going to be a great, deep, engaging process they will have fun with. There's lots of ways you can do that and set that container. But remember, this is a coaching container is sacred. So you treat it as sacred so they know that this is sacred too.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure. And definitely like and share this podcast with others if you're listening to it on YouTube or podcast episode. And we'll see you next week. Hope you have a
See
great
you
day.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.